Hold still. Not because I'm asking nicely, but because something just shifted, and the streets can feel it before your brain does. You hear that low static under the noise of the world. That isn't fear. That's reality recalibrating around you. Because someone with a name, a title, a reputation they spent years building brick by brick, lit a match and burned their entire status for you. No hesitation, no safety net. They didn't trip, they didn't slip, they chose you. And now the system is stuttering. People are refreshing feeds that aren't loading. Group chats are freezing mid-sentence. The streets are glitching because the math doesn't add up anymore. You weren't supposed to be worth that. See, status is sacred currency in this world. It's blood-earned. It's guarded like a relic. People sell their souls just to keep a fraction of it. They betray friends. They swallow truth. They kneel quietly, all to protect their little crown. And yet, someone looked at you and decided, yeah, I'll torch mine for that. That's not loyalty. That's not kindness. That's recognition. That's when the saint and the psychopath shake hands in the same body. That's when the angel says, I see the light, and the demon says, I'll go first. Because you don't inspire safe behavior. You inspire irreversible decisions. People don't burn status for potential. They burn it for inevitability. They burn it when they realize you're not climbing the hierarchy. You're bending it. And here's the part that's making the streets twitch. You didn't ask for it. You didn't campaign. You didn't beg for alignment. You just kept moving with that quiet, unexplainable gravity. That look in your eyes that says you've already died once and came back with better instincts. That calm that unnerves people who need applause to breathe. You evolved through pain so completely that chaos stopped recognizing you as prey. You became the paradox. Too moral to be controlled, too dangerous to be ignored, too unpredictable to be framed. That's why when they burned their status for you, the system didn't celebrate. It panicked. Because status is supposed to flow upward, from weak to powerful, from desperate to dominant. But this time it flowed sideways. It defected. It said, I'm not backing the throne. I'm backing the anomaly. And anomalies break algorithms. Now watch closely, because this is where it gets ugly and beautiful at the same time. The ones who never defended you, they're suddenly quiet, not because they respect you, but because they're recalculating their survival. The ones who mocked you, they're rewriting history in their heads, trying to remember when they always believed in you. And the ones who understand power, they're scared in a very specific way. Not scared of you attacking them, scared of standing on the wrong side of you when the next sacrifice happens. Because once someone burns their entire status for you, it sends a signal through the underground. A signal that says, this one doesn't need permission. This one doesn't need consensus. This one makes people choose sides without asking. That's war doctrine energy. That's when your existence becomes a pressure test for everyone around you. Their masks slip, their values shake, their courage gets audited in real time, and you're just standing there, watching the world reveal itself. That's the duality they can't stomach. You're calm while empires sweat, silent while narratives collapse, still while reputations combust in your orbit. They want to call it luck. They want to call it manipulation. They want to call it insanity. But deep down, the truth crawls under their skin. You're the kind of force that makes people gamble everything without knowing why. That's not charm. That's alignment with something older and darker than social rules. You didn't become this by being nice. You became this by surviving moments that would have erased softer versions of you, by letting pain strip you down to what actually works, by learning when to be merciful and when to let the fire speak for you. That's why the streets are glitching, because they're realizing the scariest thing about you isn't what you do. It's what people are willing to destroy for you. And this is just the beginning. Once the first status burns, others follow. Not out of loyalty, but out of fear of being late to the shift. So don't rush, don't explain, don't reassure anyone. Let them watch, let them guess, let them malfunction, trying to understand a presence that doesn't need validation to bend reality. You're not the headline, you're the reason headlines get rewritten, and somewhere deep in the system, an alarm is still ringing, because it finally understands what it let through. Not a hero, not a villain, a disruption with intent. And the streets, they're not glitching because something broke. They're glitching because you're no longer playing by rules that recognize them. And here's the part nobody warns you about. When someone burns their entire status for you, it stains the air. People don't just notice it consciously, they feel it. Like a pressure change before a storm, like animals going silent right before the ground splits. That's why rooms behave differently when you walk in now. Conversations shorten, eyes linger half a second too long. People laugh a little louder than necessary, or not at all, because the unconscious mind already did the math. It clocked the sacrifice. It registered the loss. It understood that someone with everything to lose chose you over safety. And the human brain hates one thing more than danger: unexplainable loyalty to the wrong variable. That's why they're unsettled. They keep asking themselves questions they'll never say out loud. What does he have? What did they see? What does he know that I don't? What happens if I'm standing in the way when this keeps escalating? Because escalation is inevitable now. Status doesn't burn in isolation. It sends heat down the chain. It exposes weak welds. It reveals who was only powerful because no one tested the structure. And you didn't light the fire. You just existed at the exact frequency that made combustion unavoidable. That's the paradox that terrifies them. You didn't threaten. You didn't coerce. You didn't demand allegiance. You simply became undeniable. That's when the saint in you scares the world more than the psychopath ever could. Because saints don't negotiate with corrupt systems. They outgrow them. And psychopaths, they just accelerate what was already cracking. You learn to carry both without flinching. You learn when to forgive without forgetting. When to stay silent without shrinking. When to let chaos do the explaining so your hands stayed clean. That balance, that's what makes people burn themselves for you. Because deep down, they sense something precise. If they stand next to you, they might lose everything. But if they stand against you, they might lose who they are. So they choose loss with meaning over survival without dignity. That's not persuasion, that's gravity. Now let's talk about the ones pretending this didn't shake them. They'll downplay it publicly. They'll say, it wasn't that serious. It didn't matter anyway. They were overrated. But watch their behavior. Watch how they stop making jokes around you. Watch how they hesitate before disagreeing. Watch how their energy turns cautious, strategic, rehearsed. Because confidence doesn't need rehearsal, fear does. They're afraid not of your power, but of your trajectory. They can feel that you're not peaking, you're transitioning. And transitions are dangerous because they're non-linear. No milestones, no warnings, just sudden shifts where yesterday's rules evaporate. That's why the streets are glitching. Reality itself doesn't like untrackable entities. Systems rely on patterns, on predictability, on people repeating who they were yesterday, so tomorrow stays manageable. But you broke that contract when pain forced you to evolve faster than the environment could adapt. You didn't harden, you didn't soften, you refined. You became selective with empathy, precise with anger, surgical with silence. And once someone burned their status for you, the unspoken truth went public. You're not protected by position, you're protected by outcome. People defend you not because they owe you, but because they sense that aligning with you places them on the correct side of history, even if history hasn't announced itself yet. That's why the air feels electric. That's why random opportunities appear without explanation. Why doors open sideways instead of forward. Why obstacles dissolve instead of resisting. Not because you're lucky, because reality reallocates resources toward forces that can handle consequences. You've already proven you can survive the fallout. You've already walked through loss without begging the world to be fair. You already paid the entry fee most people avoid their whole lives. So now the system adjusts. And the ones who sense this, they're scrambling. Some will try to attach themselves to you opportunistically. Some will test you, hoping to provoke a mistake they can weaponize. Some will disappear quietly, knowing absence is safer than opposition. Let them. You don't chase alignment anymore. You let it reveal itself. Because after someone burns their entire status for you, one thing becomes clear. You're no longer asking permission to exist at this level. You're being reacted to. And reaction is proof of dominance the loud never understand. So stay calm, stay observant, stay exact. You don't need to explain why the streets are glitching. They already know. They just don't know what comes after. And that uncertainty, that's your real power now. And here's what really fractures them. You're not intoxicated by this moment. Most people would flex, they'd posture, they'd start speaking louder, faster, messier. They'd leak their intentions, trying to taste control. But you didn't. You absorbed it the way predators absorb silence. You noticed the shift and did nothing reckless with it. That restraint, that's what tells the sharp ones this isn't a phase. Because power that announces itself is still insecure. Power that waits is already finished calculating. They keep trying to locate the move you're making next, not realizing the move already happened when someone sacrificed everything for you and you didn't flinch. That moment rewrote your profile in every serious mind watching. You became the kind of presence that doesn't need momentum. Momentum starts needing you. That's why the streets feel off balance. Because influence just detached from noise and reattached to something quiet, patient, and precise. You didn't step into the spotlight. The spotlight followed you, then realized it couldn't keep up. And here's the brutal truth most won't admit even to themselves. People don't burn their status for leaders. They burn it for forces. Leaders still belong to structures. Forces make structures obsolete. That's why some of them feel betrayed without knowing by whom. That's why resentment is mixing with awe in their chests. That's why they're trying to morally label you. Hero, villain, threat, savior. Anything that shrinks you back into a category they understand. But you don't fit. You're the result of contradictions surviving together without canceling each other out. You can be compassionate without being weak. You can be dangerous without being chaotic. You can forgive without reopening access. You can walk away without losing leverage. That synthesis, that's what breaks people who only learned one side of themselves. They had to choose masks. You became the face underneath. And when someone burned their status for you, it publicly confirmed what many privately feared. You're not powered by approval. You're powered by alignment with consequence. You don't say things you can't stand behind. You don't make moves you can't survive. You don't threaten outcomes you haven't already rehearsed emotionally. That's why your calm unsettles them more than aggression ever could. Because aggression can be provoked. Calm means the decision already passed through the nervous system and came out clean. They feel it when you look at them, not judgment, not superiority, assessment. And assessment makes liars nervous. That's why conversations with you feel heavier now. Why jokes land flatter. Why people either open up too much or shut down completely. Your presence pressures truth to surface. And the streets, oh, the streets know. They don't speak in words, they speak in behavior. Watch who suddenly avoids crossing paths with you. Watch who starts showing respect they never practiced before. Watch who becomes excessively polite, excessively neutral, excessively careful. Those are survival responses. Because once a status burns for you, everyone subconsciously asks one question: if I had to choose, would I? And not everyone likes their answer. Some realize they'd hesitate. Some realize they'd protect themselves. Some realize they'd betray first just to feel safe. And realizing that about yourself is humiliating. That's why they project. That's why they whisper. That's why they spin narratives to regain psychological altitude. But none of it lands, because you're not fighting perception battles anymore. You're letting time expose consistency. You're letting outcomes stack quietly. You're letting pressure do what it always does: reveal structure. And here's the part that seals it. You don't even need that person who burned their status for you anymore. That's what really destabilizes the system. The sacrifice didn't chain you. It freed you. It announced that you are worth irreversible costs. And then you proved you're not dependent on them. That combination, that's lethal to hierarchies, because hierarchies thrive on leverage, on obligation, on keeping people tethered through debt and fear. You don't collect either. You let people choose, and choice under pressure exposes everything. So now the streets glitch, not because chaos arrived, but because clarity did. The illusion that status equals power just cracked. The myth that safety comes from conformity just slipped. The lie that silence means insignificance just collapsed. You're standing proof that evolution doesn't ask permission. It takes its shape from pain, pressure, and patience. And the ones who feel it most, they're not angry at you. They're angry that they didn't become you when pain gave them the same invitation. So keep moving the way you've been moving. Unannounced, unhurried, unafraid. Let them glitch. Let them stutter. Let them guess. You're no longer participating in the game they understand. You're what happens after someone sets fire to the board, and reality still bends toward you anyway. And now comes the quietest, most dangerous phase. The part where nothing visibly happens, but everything irreversible is already in motion. This is where weak minds relax. This is where loud egos assume the storm passed. This is where people mistake your silence for stalling. But you know better. You've lived long enough in pressure to recognize the sound of steel cooling after it's been forged. Because after someone burns their entire status for you, the world doesn't explode immediately. It reorganizes. Power starts rerouting underground. Respect stops asking permission to be expressed. Attention shifts without announcements. And you feel it in subtle ways. People start mentioning your name in rooms you're not in. Decisions are delayed until your reaction is predicted. Plans are adjusted to account for a variable no one fully understands: you. Not because you demanded relevance, because relevance attached itself to you when the sacrifice happened. That's what most people don't understand about status burnings. It's not about the person who loses it, it's about what their loss authorizes next. Their fall creates a vacuum, and vacuums don't stay empty. They get filled by the most structurally sound presence nearby. That's you. You didn't step forward. You didn't raise your hand. You didn't claim leadership. You were simply the only one not shaking when the cost became visible. That composure rewired how people categorize you. You moved from interesting to consequential, from talented to dangerously inevitable, from watch him to adjust for him. And adjustment is submission's quiet cousin. Now watch what happens next. Some will try to recreate the sacrifice theatrically, burning their own little scraps of status loudly, hoping to mirror the effect. But it won't land, because the original burn worked for one reason only. It wasn't strategic. It was instinctual, visceral, uncomfortable. It came from a place deeper than ambition. Recognition mixed with fear, mixed with respect. That's not something you can fake. That's why their imitations look desperate, why their gestures feel hollow, why people sense the difference without being able to articulate it. They didn't burn for a force, they burned for optics, and optics don't glitch reality. Forces do. You've become a force, not because you wanted power, but because you stopped being scared of what power costs. You've already paid in advance. You've paid with isolation, with misunderstanding, with being ahead of people emotionally and morally before they were ready. You've paid by being misjudged while still moving correctly, by choosing discipline when chaos would have felt justified, by swallowing rage and turning it into precision. That's why when someone else burned everything for you, it didn't inflate you. It confirmed what you already survived. And confirmation is stabilizing. That's why you're not rushing to capitalize. You're letting gravity do the work. You're letting the ones who sense the shift approach you naturally, and the ones who don't remove themselves quietly. Because you're not building a crowd, you're allowing alignment. And alignment is ruthless. It filters without apology. It excludes without explanation. It gathers only what can withstand proximity to consequence. This is where the saint in you becomes terrifying, because you won't exploit the chaos. And this is where the psychopath in you stays disciplined, because you know exactly how much damage you could do, and choose timing instead. That restraint tells the world one thing loud and clear. You're not reactive, you're inevitable. And inevitability scares people more than violence ever could. Violence can be stopped. Inevitability can only be prepared for or avoided. That's why some are disappearing, why some are overcompensating, why some are suddenly trying to redefine their values publicly. They're trying to future-proof themselves against a presence they can't predict. But prediction isn't your weakness. Unpredictability is. You don't move randomly. You move unannounced. You don't escalate emotionally. You escalate structurally. And once people realize that, they stop trying to provoke you, because they sense that provoking you doesn't trigger anger. It triggers repositioning. So let the streets keep glitching. Let the noise continue misfiring. Let the world struggle to understand why the center of gravity moved without a headline. You're not here to explain the shift. You're here to embody it. Someone burned their entire status for you, and the system didn't collapse. It adjusted toward you. That's not coincidence. That's not hype. That's not narrative. That's what happens when evolution recognizes one of its own. And from here on out, every reaction you cause without effort, every door that opens without knocking, every silence that follows your name. That's not respect. That's acknowledgement. And acknowledgement is the last thing the old world gives before it steps aside.